Snakes that can kill you. Here, I'll show you which ones are the most likely to do so. The deadliest snakes in the world. Number 10. Death Adder. The death adder is the name given to a genus of vipers, the most dangerous and well-known of which is the common death adder that inhabits Australia and Papua New Guinea. It can grow up to 3.3 feet long and has the largest fangs of all Australian snakes. How frightening! It typically preys on frogs, lizards, and birds, but unlike other venomous snakes, this one is somewhat lazy because it camouflages itself by covering with leaves and remains coiled, moving the end of its tail, which resembles a worm and serves as a lure. When an animal approaches, the death adder strikes at a lethal speed. Its preference for hiding makes it especially dangerous for humans because it doesn't flee or warn, it simply bites. That's why many people end up bitten after a walk in the forest. Its venom is highly toxic as it's composed of neurotoxins, which primarily attack the connections between neurons, thus preventing the transmission of nerve impulses. Therefore, a person bitten experiences paralysis, respiratory failure, and death by suffocation about 6 hours after being bitten. No wonder it's called the death adder. Number 9. Inland taipan. I introduce you to the most venomous snake in the world, the inland taipan, which also inhabits Australia, but only in the remote central area of the island. A single bite is lethal enough to kill over 100 people. Its venom has evolved to kill warm-blooded animals such as humans, making it a living nightmare. It can grow up to 8.2 feet in length, which is longer than the height of a person. Its favorite meals are rodents. In each attack, it typically bites several times, up to 8 in total, instantly destroying the poor mice. Despite this ferocity, it prefers to escape rather than cause trouble, but it'll attack if there's no other option, delivering multiple bites in a single strike. The venom of the taipan contains neurotoxins that cause progressive paralysis. The first symptoms can appear within half an hour of the bite and usually start with drooping eyelids or ptosis, followed by difficulty breathing or suffocation, ultimately killing the person in about 45 minutes. This often requires intubation and artificial respiration. The venom also has hemotoxins, which prevent blood clotting, leading to internal hemorrhaging, especially in the brain, potentially resulting in death from a stroke if suffocation hasn't occurred first. The venom also contains myotoxins that destroy the outer membrane of muscle cells. This tissue breakdown overloads the kidneys, which have to filter so much tissue debris in the blood and leads to renal failure, which can also kill the person if they haven't already died from a stroke or suffocation. Death comes from all sides. Number 8. King Cobra. The king cobra is the longest venomous snake in the world, reaching lengths up to 19.2 feet. It inhabits the Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia, and southern China, and mainly preys on other snakes, including those of its own species. To detect its prey, it flicks out and waggles its forked tongue, which picks up aromatic particles from the environment. This is how it detects the location and movements of its prey. The king cobra swallows its prey whole, even if it's larger than its head. It does this with the help of its flexible jaws. If it encounters a human, it'll usually slither away quickly, but if its nest is nearby, it won't hesitate to confront the intruder. If this happens to you, be very careful. People often forget that this snake is extremely long and therefore can launch attacks from a great distance. Letting your guard down too soon can be a fatal mistake, as its bite is enough to kill 20 people or an elephant. And venomation can lead to death within just 30 minutes of the bite. Symptoms at the wound site include swelling, pain, and dark discoloration around the bitten area. In severe cases, there's necrosis, meaning the tissues near the bite site rot, necessitating limb amputation. Meanwhile, toxins from the venom begin to act throughout the body, such as cardiotoxins affecting heart function, potentially causing a heart attack. The venom destroys blood vessels, preventing clotting, and its neurotoxins attack the nervous system, causing blurred vision, paralysis, and coma. Death can occur from cardiac failure or suffocation because the poisoned nervous system is unable to maintain respiratory function. Number 7. Caspian cobra. This lethal species is considered the most venomous cobra in the world. It inhabits Central Asia, where it stealthily prowls in arid mountains, near rocks or under bushes and shrubs. It can grow up to 5.6 feet long. The somewhat kind aspect is that it tends to avoid humans as much as possible, but it can become aggressive and bite if it feels threatened. The first symptoms of envenomation can occur as early as 15 minutes after the bite and include weakness, drowsiness, clumsy movements, low blood pressure, and paralysis of the throat and limbs. Cytotoxins destroy cell membranes, leading to muscle tissue destruction near the bite. Cardiotoxins can cause complications in the heart during the early stages of envenomation and may even lead to a heart attack. Death is usually caused by respiratory failure as early as 45 minutes after the bite, but agony can last up to 24 hours. Number 6. Common krait. This snake belongs to the Big Four, meaning the 4 species that cause the most deaths in the Indian subcontinent. It can grow up to 5 feet and 9 inches. You can find it in a wide variety of places, such as fields, jungles, and even urban areas where it tends to sneak into houses. The krait changes its behavior depending on whether it's day or night. During the day, it's slow and docile, hiding away where nobody sees it, but at night, it's very active and can become highly aggressive. So be careful in the darkness. At those hours, it usually goes hunting for its prey, whether rats, mice, lizards, or frogs, and that's when human bites occur. The common krait is the second snake with the most bites in India and is responsible for half of the deaths from snake bites in Bangladesh. Pay attention to this fact. Its bite is practically painless, hurting as little as a mosquito or ant sting, which gives the victim a false sense of security, leading them not to worry about going to a hospital until it's too late. In fact, there are people who have been bitten while sleeping and never woke up. The venom contains neurotoxins, which, as we've mentioned, attack the junction points between neurons, affecting the transfer of nerve impulses, leading to muscle paralysis. The victim, if awake, feels the paralysis advancing. The facial muscles become paralyzed 1 or 2 hours after the bite. Breathing difficulties occur 5 hours later, and between 5 and 8 hours later, respiratory paralysis sets in, leading to death by suffocation. 80% of untreated bites result in death. Number 5. Black mamba. Meet the most feared snake in all of sub-Saharan Africa. It can grow up to 15 feet long, making it the second longest venomous snake after the king cobra. Its skin color is usually gray, but its most characteristic feature is the black interior of its mouth, hence its name. You can find it both on the ground and climbing trees or bushes. It mainly feeds on birds and small mammals like squirrels. The black mamba rarely tolerates humans approaching within about 130 feet, and it's not uncommon for it to give a warning display by opening its mouth, flicking its tongue, and hissing. Due to its length, it can easily attack the chest, face, or arms, and any sudden movement can cause the snake to strike repeatedly at the victim. The venom contains neurotoxins that can cause the first symptoms within 10 minutes. These include involuntary drooping of the eyelids, pupil constriction, blurred vision, inability to articulate words, difficulty swallowing, contractions, difficulty controlling saliva, difficulty breathing, nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, and diarrhea. The person may be unable to stand within just 45 minutes of the bite, and death occurs between 7 and 15 hours after the bite due to respiratory paralysis or cardiovascular collapse. Number 4. Indian cobra. The Indian cobra is one of the most commonly used cobras by snake charmers. It inhabits the Indian subcontinent and can be easily identified by the spectacle-shaped markings on the back of its hood. It can grow up to 7.2 feet long. The Indian cobra is responsible for 40% of identified venomous snake bites in India, and many victims are farmers working in rice fields. Symptoms of its bite include intense pain near the wound and swelling that begins immediately after being bitten, spreading throughout the attacked limb. And if it spreads to the trunk, it means that the bite will have serious consequences. 3 days later, if the person hasn't died, the area will present necrosis and blisters that smell like rotten flesh. flesh. Systemic symptoms are even more serious and can occur as early as 15 minutes after the bite. The initial symptoms are headache, nausea, vomiting, dizziness, and excessive viscous salivation. Meanwhile, certain toxins from the venom act on cell membranes to destroy them and facilitate the spread of the venom. Cardiotoxins interfere with the proper functioning of the heart, so the person may die from cardiac arrest. On the other hand, the neurotoxins in the venom cause involuntary eyelid closure, difficulty opening the eyes, speaking, opening the mouth, moving the lips, and swallowing, ultimately leading to muscular paralysis. Respiratory paralysis usually occurs between 3 and 4 hours after the bite, leading to suffocation if emergency artificial respiration or a tracheotomy is not performed. Number 3. Eastern brown snake. This feared snake lives throughout Western Australia and southern Papua New Guinea. It can grow up to 7.9 feet long. Its fangs are considerably smaller compared to those of other snakes, but that doesn't matter much because it's considered the second most venomous terrestrial snake in the world after the inland taipan. Terrifying! You must be very careful because in cities, it likes to seek refuge in the garbage, cracks in the ground, and gardens hidden among the rocks. It has been found hibernating with up to 13 brown snakes under a slab in a house, demonstrating its ability to invade our homes uninvited. It also likes to evict rodents and rest in their burrows. So who would dare to evict it? That's how it obtains housing and real estate. It poses a serious problem for dogs because, being smaller than humans, the venom is more toxic and the antidote is less effective. The eastern brown snake is the deadliest snake in Australia and responsible for 41% of identified snake bite deaths in that country. In humans, the venom initially causes symptoms such as nausea, vomiting, sweating, and abdominal pain. At 15 minutes, headaches begin, and half an hour after the bite, coagulation problems start, causing severe bleeding, hypotension, and thrombosis in various parts of the body. Like in other cases of envenomation, dead red blood cells overload the kidneys, causing renal failure. Everything happens very quickly, and the victim ends up losing their life due to cardiac arrest or a stroke. Number 2. Russell's viper. The Russell's viper is part of the Big Four and inhabits India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh, where it has killed 1.2 million people in the last 20 years. Its name comes from the Scottish naturalist Patrick Russell, who experimented with its dangerous nature by having it bite dogs and chickens. It has a maximum length of 65 inches and is truly a danger because it likes to eat rats, mice, and lizards, animals that often live near humans. As if this weren't enough, it's nocturnal, which makes it difficult to spot when it's most active. It's so dangerous and feared among animals that there are even snakes that, as an adaptation measure, have become similar to it. I'm talking about the Russell's sand snake, which, while not dangerous, mimics its skin to gain respect from other species. Now, what you're interested in. What would happen if a Russell's viper bites a human? The first thing a person would feel is pain at the bite site, which can last for 4 weeks, along with blisters. Swelling follows in the affected area, but if it spreads to the chest, it's a sign that the envenomation has become severe and the person is in serious danger. Once bitten, the person may also bleed from the gums or through urine, experience vomiting, and even start spitting blood after 20 minutes. Superficial necrosis can occur in areas near the bite, while other times the area loses its color because internal bleeding causes red blood cells to leak into surrounding tissues, leaving the blood vessels. In fact, the symptoms in the circulatory system are the most terrible: low blood pressure, decreased heart rate, facial swelling, and renal failure due to the kidney's inability to process so many dead red blood cells. Death usually occurs from renal, respiratory, or cardiac failure and can happen up to 14 days after the bite. Prepare the antidote because it's time to meet the deadliest of them all. Number 1. Saw-scaled viper. The saw-scaled viper is responsible for more human deaths than all other snakes combined. It lives in the Middle East and the Indian subcontinent, a member of the infamous Big Four, the deadliest quartet of snakes in the region. The saw-scaled viper is the smallest of its members, reaching just 31 inches in length. It enjoys climbing bushes up to 2 meters above the ground. Imagine coming face to face with the world's deadliest snake, ready to strike. Its diet includes a wide variety of animals, insects, centipedes, lizards, frogs, rodents, and scorpions, because yes, it eats scorpions. The reason for its extreme danger is its high aggressiveness. When they attack, it seems like they have a spring underneath that propels them with all their strength, and they can inject 12 milligrams of venom in a single bite, whereas they only need 5 to kill a person. The envenomation causes symptoms both near the wound and throughout the body. At the bite site, pain and swelling appear soon, which usually spreads throughout the affected limb for up to 24 hours, while the skin becomes covered in blisters. Meanwhile, the person experiences bleeding, inability to clot, vomiting blood, dark-colored stools due to internal bleeding, nosebleeds, blood in the airways coming out of the mouth, and blood in the urine. In conclusion, a general hemorrhage causing hypovolemia, where the heart no longer has enough blood to reach all organs. The victim may suffer from renal failure as the kidneys become unable to filter so many dead red blood cell remnants, which ultimately kills them if a stroke hasn't done so before. And that was the venomous video about the world's deadliest snakes. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to subscribe and activate the notifications because there's more animal content for you. See you in the next video.